the hidden problem destroying Barcelona. Barcelona are leaking goals 20 in just 15 official matches. 7 of them in only 4 European fixtures. Every misplaced pass, every turnover, turns instantly into a counter-attack. It's chaos, it's unsustainable, you simply can't win titles defending like this. And yet, this isn't just bad luck. It's the direct consequence of a tactical choice that once looked revolutionary.
Slips that one through to Kylian Mbappe, the first chance over the goalkeeper.
Very, very tight. Yeah. And well, Barcelona at the moment are being saved by inches.
Last season, Hansi Flick's high defensive line looked like a masterstroke. It brought order, dominance, and even a touch of arrogance back to Barca's play. The team suffocated opponents with a razor-sharp offside trap, most memorably in the Clásico at the Santiago Bernabéu, where Real Madrid were caught offside, 8 times of those by Mbappe himself, including disallowed goals.
Primer palo se eleva Tchouaméni. Mbappé golpea la pelota en la misma línea de gol viniendo de un compañero de Tchouaméni.
It felt like genius, the hallmark of a team that had rediscovered control, with Íñigo Martínez leading from the back.
Resiste el Celta, le está costando al Barça, pero encuentra el espacio ahora en la posición de interior. Ferran puede disparar a puerta.
Pau Cubarsí reading space like a veteran. And Koundé and Balde flying down the flanks. The system seemed bulletproof. Rivals fell into the trap. Again and again, 58 disallowed goals over the season. A record-breaking number. On paper, it was perfect. On the pitch, it looked like domination. But beneath the surface, that same strategy was a time bomb. Barca weren't just forcing offsides, they were constantly living on the edge. The moment focus slipped, even for a second, the entire backline collapsed. Last season it didn't hurt because Barcelona scored for fun, they could afford defensive chaos.
You cannot play in the Champions League with that eye line, I'm sorry. When you play against good teams, you're going to get exposed, and that's exactly what happened tonight. Any run, well-timed run, you go through and goal. Every single time we mentioned it, they don't want to change it, and I understand sometimes coaches can be stubborn with how they go with the game, but it can be costly in big games.
But this year, with Íñigo gone, key players injured, and the attack less lethal, the cracks have become chasms. The result? A Barcelona that looks fragile, stretched and predictable. They've already lost key matches against Real Madrid and PSG, and even been torn apart by Club Brugge in Europe. The defensive structure that once terrified opponents is now the reason they can't sleep at night. And it's not just tactics anymore. Injuries, dressing room egos, and off-pitch noise have turned this into the first true crisis of the Hansi Flick era. The question now is simple: can the German fix it before it's too late? The now famous Barcelona offside trap has become one of the most debated topics in European football. What once looked like a tactical masterpiece is now being dissected as the club's most dangerous flaw. When Hansi Flick arrived in 2024, his idea was crystal clear. Barcelona would play brave, compact and aggressive football. A defensive line of 4, stationed high around the halfway line, perfectly synchronised to spring the offside trap and suffocate opponents before they could breathe. For a while it worked beautifully. The results were spectacular 3 trophies in the 2024/25 campaign and a Champions League semi-final against Inter Milan. But even during that tie, cracks began to show. The Italian side tore through the system, scoring 7 goals in 2 matches, exposing just how fragile Barca could be when the timing wasn't perfect. By the end of the season, teams had figured them out. Shelter, Villarreal,
Arriba para Nicolás Pepe, esta puede ser la primera ya para Ayoce, gol!
and Real Madrid.
Here's Vinicius. He's got Mbappe ahead of him. He plays in Kylian Mbappe. This could be 2-0 for Real Madrid. Mbappe scored!
All scored 3 goals apiece against the Catalans. The damage was disguised because Barcelona still managed to outscore most rivals, but the warning signs were there. To understand the problem, we have to look at how this high line actually works. Whenever the opposition progresses past the halfway line, Barca triggers a new defensive mechanism, still high, still compact, but increasingly dependent on precision. The active full-back, the one nearest the ball, pushes forward aggressively to press the ball carrier, supported by the defensive pivot on that side. Meanwhile, the centre-backs slide across, stepping forward to close the gaps or holding their ground to delay the attack. On the weak side, the opposite full-back must readjust in real time, holding a high position but constantly watching the movement of his direct opponent. It's an intricate dance that depends on timing, trust and split-second coordination. When it works, it's suffocating, but when even one player mistimes a step, it turns from a trap into a highway, and that's exactly what's been happening this season. At first, the system looked unbreakable, a tactical weapon so sharp it left even the best opponents paralysed. Barcelona's high defensive line wasn't just working, it was humiliating elite strikers and forcing them into constant frustration. Take the first Clásico of last season. Early in the match, Lucas Vázquez received the ball and quickly played it into Bellingham, who immediately tried to release Mbappe into space. But even before the pass was made, Barcelona's backline was already stepping forward in perfect unison. The trap was immaculate. Mbappe received the ball inside the box, yet the flag went up instantly, offside. The execution was brilliant, and it set the tone for the entire game. Later in that same match, another long ball from Madrid's defence reached Lucas Vázquez again. He saw Mbappe making his trademark run in behind and sent the ball forward. For a moment, it looked like the breakthrough. Mbappe controlled it beautifully, chipped the goalkeeper, and thought he'd scored the opener. But once again, the offside flag cut the celebration short. Barcelona's defensive line had timed the trap to perfection, catching one of the quickest players in the world half a step ahead. And it wasn't just Madrid that suffered. Against Sevilla, the same pattern repeated itself. A hopeful long ball from the back tried to exploit the space behind the defenders, but Barca's line held steady. Every defender, Koundé, Cubarsí, Balde and Íñigo Martínez moved as one, stepping forward the exact moment the pass was played. The result? Another flawless offside trap. In those moments, it felt like Flick's Barcelona had mastered the art of controlled chaos. The high line wasn't just a risk, it was a statement, and for a while it made them look untouchable. What we just saw was a glimpse of the well-oiled machine that Barcelona were last season. Their defensive personality and positioning were near perfection. The asymmetrical 4-2-3-1 system, orchestrated by Pedri, was brutal in its precision combined with layered positional play in the creative zones and explosive vertical transitions. It made Barca a goal-scoring juggernaut, with 174 goals across all competitions. It was a tactical symphony that elevated Lamine Yamal to best in the world status.
But he's kept his composure, kept the ball, now he sets up and skips away from Mkhitaryan. Oh, that's brilliant!
Rafinha to Ballon d'Or form. Lewandowski back to his prime. And Pedri into the heartbeat of the team. But now, reality looks very different. Barca clearly have a problem. Out of 15 matches this season, they've won 10, drawn 2, and lost 3. But the alarming part is defensive. They've conceded 20 goals, an average of 1.3 per game, the second highest figure this century, only behind Luis Enrique's 2015-16 team that had let in 23 by this point. Something is broken. And even Hansi Flick knows it. After the chaotic 3-3 draw away to Club Brugge, the German coach insisted he wouldn't abandon his philosophy. The high defensive line is non-negotiable. Flick admits he's found the problem but hasn't found the fix.
Sorry. No, it's not the way to change, okay? It's not like that how we want to play. We are Barca, okay? And we want to play our our football is a style to be active and have intensity. So this is against the ball, but also with the ball.
The coach points to pressing as the real issue. Last season, opponents were caught offside by centimetres because every movement was in sync. This season, those same centimetres are going against Barca, and it's because the pressing structure in front of the defence isn't working. The timing is off, the coordination is gone, but that same trap, the one that once made Barcelona look untouchable, has now turned into their biggest weakness. The first glaring example came against PSG in the Champions League. The play started innocently enough, a pass to Achraf Hakimi out wide. But the moment Hakimi received the ball, everything fell apart. The entire Barca backline stepped up, but not together, not in rhythm. The timing was completely off. Hakimi took one touch forward, lifted his head, and released a simple through ball that sliced the line apart. Gonzalo Ramos was left completely unmarked, one-on-one with the keeper, and he didn't miss. He slotted it home to seal Barca's defeat. What stood out wasn't just the goal, it was the chaos. Some defenders had stepped up, others were still retreating. The line was broken, disorganised, exposed. Then came another moment of panic, this time against Levante. A careless turnover in midfield turned into a nightmare. Suddenly no one was left at the back. The high line had pushed so far forward that when Levante recovered the ball, they found acres of empty space behind. Only Balde was remotely in position, but even he was too far up to intervene. Levante's counter looked destined to punish them, and only pure luck or wastefulness kept the ball out of the net. And then came another goal that perfectly summed up the problem. The play started from midfield as Barca tried to press high and push numbers forward. The opposition winger made a diagonal run into space, completely untracked, while the backline failed to hold together. By the time the ball was played, the winger was already through on goal. He reached the edge of the box and squared it across to his teammate, who calmly tapped it in. Once again, the defence was caught in no man's land split, stretched and powerless to react. The goal was almost a carbon copy of Gonzalo Ramos' strike in the Champions League, another painful reminder that the trap no longer traps anyone. These moments reveal the uncomfortable truth. Barcelona's biggest weapon has become their biggest flaw. What once looked like a stroke of tactical genius now feels like a ticking time bomb, one bad step away from disaster, and injuries have only deepened the crisis. Goalkeeper Wojciech Szczęsny, deputising for the injured Joan Garcia, has failed to provide the same calmness or reliability. The Polish keeper isn't directly at fault, but his record speaks volumes. 9 consecutive matches conceding. He hasn't kept a clean sheet in any of his 8 starts, a streak that's close to historic. The only Barca keeper with a worse run was Luis Miro, who conceded 19 straight games during the 1941-42 season. The problem doesn't end there. The fullbacks aren't the same. Koundé looks shaky, and Balde's flank has turned into a highway for rival wingers. Both are pushing too high to press, leaving acres of space behind. The once perfect coordination is now chaos. At centre-back, the absence of Íñigo Martínez, the leader of last season's defensive line, has been devastating. Flick has tried everything Araujo Cubarsí. Eric Cubarsí. Now Araujo Eric. But the combinations keep leaking goals. Sometimes they click, but often one mistimed step breaks the entire offside trap. But despite all this, there's something even more alarming. Without Pedri, there is no game. That's the brutal truth. Without him, Barcelona lose their rhythm, their ability to dictate tempo, and their creativity between lines. Pedri isn't just a midfielder, he's the metronome of this entire system. When he's missing, the team struggles to connect midfield to attack, and the whole structure begins to crumble. The issue is glaring. The players who replace him simply can't press or recover the ball at the same level. Too often, the opponent's playmaker has all the time in the world to look up and deliver a perfect through ball behind Barca's dangerously high line. One pass and they're exposed. The same flaw repeats itself in the front line. The absence of Rafinha has been devastating. The Brazilian was the best presser in the squad, constantly closing spaces and forcing turnovers. It's no wonder Flick was furious when he suffered a setback in his recovery, because without him, the system loses its first line of defence. Marcus Rashford, while efficient in attack, looks lost without the ball. He's scoring, yes, but he doesn't understand Flick's defensive mechanisms. Ferran Torres works tirelessly and presses with intensity, but he can't do it alone. Lamine Yamal, still recovering from a pubalgia, has to ration his energy, while Lewandowski, when on the pitch, simply doesn't have the legs to press at this stage of his career. It leaves Flick in a tactical no-man's land. He's aware of the problems, and his constant lineup changes across these 15 games prove he's searching for answers. But so far he hasn't found the right formula. The German coach now clings to one hope: the return of his key injured players after the international break. Only then can he restore control, bring balance back to Barca's game, and relaunch the team into contention for the titles they were built to win. So where exactly does Hansi Flick need to focus his attention? It's imperative that he finds a way to improve the coordination, spacing, and communication between his centre-backs. Beyond that, Flick must also explore a different defensive setup, especially in the final stages of matches won, that doesn't demand constant sprints toward their own goal. Because right now, the blueprint to beat Barcelona's high line is crystal clear, and the best teams in Europe will waste no time exploiting it. Barca's defenders are not naturally suited to sitting deep. But the truth is clear: unless Flick adjusts the height of his defensive line, his side will continue to concede the same kind of goals: easy, predictable, and costly. Then there's the issue of pressing intensity, which lies at the root of many of Barca's defensive problems. Last season, their press was among the best in the world, synchronised, suffocating, and ruthless. This season, opponents are building out from the back with alarming ease. Barcelona's entire system depends on recovering the ball high up the pitch. That's what allows them to create danger instantly, to dominate possession, and to save energy by defending through control. But when the press fails, every player is forced to sprint backwards, constantly burning energy, constantly under pressure. Rafinha's absence has only made things worse. Last season, his work without the ball was arguably more important than his goals or assists. Now his injury has left a gaping hole, and it's time for the rest of Barca's attackers to take responsibility and match that intensity. From the very first match, Flick has been visibly furious with his team's effort levels. The problem hasn't gone away. If Barcelona want to return to last year's heights, they must rediscover their pressing identity, the aggression, the hunger, the synchrony that once made them terrifying. And then comes another crucial aspect: the role of the number 10. Fermín López has been one of the few bright spots: 6 goals and 4 assists, stepping up where Dani Olmo has failed to deliver. His consistency, creativity, and connection with Lamine Yamal have been key in keeping Barca competitive. Flick must empower Fermín and make him central to the attacking blueprint moving forward, because Olmo's form is deeply concerning. Once a dynamic, inventive playmaker, he now looks lost, struggling to create, finish, or press effectively. For a player meant to be the creative hub of the system, his regression is alarming.
Bajón de Dani Olmo es tremebundo, bajón muy grande de Dani Olmo, un bajón que no entendemos mucho tampoco a qué se debe.
And then, of course, there's the injury crisis. This season, nearly every major name has spent time in the treatment room. Joan Garcia, Frenkie de Jong, Balde, Gavi, Rafinha, Olmo, Lamine Yamal, Fermín López, and Robert Lewandowski. Last season, injuries were a challenge, but never this bad, especially not all at once. And the ones who have stayed fit, Pedri, Rashford, Kubasi, and Eric Garcia, are already showing signs of fatigue, a worrying sign so early in the campaign. Flick and his backroom staff must urgently assess the squad's physical conditioning. The good news? There's still time. The season is long and recovery is possible, but only if Barca stabilises its fitness base. Because one thing has become obvious: when Barcelona are healthy, they're a completely different team. Last year's success was built on keeping Pedri fit this year. They're learning that Rafinha's health is just as crucial. If Flick can get his key players back and firing, Barca's face and their entire season could change completely.